Morning you. At the top of a hill near where I live. I'll just show you the scene. I just live down there in that little village down there, if you can see it. On the top of the hill nearby. What you can see over there is the coast. That's the north coast of Cornwall with some bands of rain coming down on it. It continues down over there as well. And I'm kind of heading up this little hill here because from the top, I'm told, on a good day you can see the south coast of Cornwall. You can see both coasts. And I mean, the weather's changed since I set off about half an hour ago. Went the long way around and it was absolutely gorgeous, really bright sunshine. It's got a little bit of cloud now, and as you can see the rain is starting to come in a wee bit. But it is beautiful, there's no doubt about that. And it is reminding me about some thinking I've been doing about beauty. Beauty. I've had a couple of conversations in the comment sections or here on YouTube about beauty recently, particularly in relation to art and aesthetics. But also the conversations, you know, in my offline life as well about this, because it's a really interesting topic, I think. And for me, and I may be idiosyncratic in this regard, I mean, I think beauty is something very different now to what it was 150 years ago. I think a lot of changes have taken place over the past century and a half, which has changed our understanding of beauty completely, and has kind of stripped beauty of whatever innocence it might originally have had. And by that what I mean is three things actually. I mean, findings in the biological sciences I think have had an impact on our understanding of beauty. I think political events over the last 100 years have changed it. And I think developments in technology have changed our understandings of it. And all of these things for me have forced me at least to be a little suspicious about beauty and to not regard it with the kind of awe and the totally non-conscious acceptance that I might once have done, really. Although I do think there's still a place for beauty, and I still value beautiful things, and also value my capacity to generate an appreciation of something as beautiful, even if it doesn't necessarily fulfill the criteria that beautiful things might once have had to fulfill. Let me just spill out what I mean by all of that, if you've got patience. Firstly, in terms of those three things, evolutionary science, recent history, and then technologies as having impacts on how beauty is understood. I mean, the first thing, evolutionary science. I think we pretty much understand to a fair degree now about what we mean in scientific terms when we have that aesthetic appreciation of something as beautiful. You know, I mean, there's a lot been written about this, evolutionary aesthetics, that is usually kind of caught in that phrase that beauty is the anticipation of function, or the promise of function. That when we see something as beautiful, there's part of our biology which is anticipating its possible use. And I don't necessarily mean that in a totally objectifying way, but it's purposiveness to enhancing our lives in some way. So a beautiful woman or a beautiful man one of the reasons why they might be beautiful is because we anticipate the promise of our lives with them, or some time we might spend together. A beautiful landscape such as this one, on a day such as this one, is promising something to us about our safety here, our ability to flourish in this landscape. It's the richness of its soil, you know, the fish swimming in that ocean, the unlikelihood of a great storm, or you know, and all those kind of things, really. So something about beauty is captured in evolution these days, and that's interesting. But that kind of understanding kind of changes things a bit, doesn't it? Because evolution is definitely a mixed blessing. That understanding of the evolutionary drives that underpin our appreciation of beauty. So that's the first thing. The second is to do with recent history. And in a way it's connected to the first. And here, I suppose I'm mainly thinking here about Godwin's Law and everything. I think I'm mostly thinking about the Nazis, who, say what you like about the Nazis, they understood how to put on a good show, you know. Their spectacles, you know, the Nuremberg rallies and all that kind of stuff, were fantastic displays of a certain kind of beauty. They understood symmetry, they understood pageantry, they understood display. And even in something like the uniforms, I read recently that the uniforms worn by SS officers were designed by Hugo Boss, the fashion designer, who's now a fashion designer, well-known fashion designer. And in a way that doesn't surprise me either. You know, they had style. You know, they had style, and that combination, that association of style with totalitarian governance, with Nazism, you know, with fascism, is I think it's hard to break out of that now. And beauty for me is always tinged with kind of fascist overtones. You know, people who've got very beautiful bodies and who work very hard to keep those bodies beautiful. I've even heard those people referred to as body fascists. That's an overstatement, of course, but there's something of that, isn't there, in that whole idea. And I say they're possibly connected because it's not entirely, because it's not perhaps entirely unsurprising, is it, that a government, a political system like Nazism, like National Socialism, you know, like the various fascist regimes, have in some ways approximated crude versions of Darwinian natural selection. I say crude versions because of course there's more to it than that. But you know, if evolution was a political system, it would be something like fascism. So again, that's another reason for why beauty is a little bit untrustworthy, to me at least, because of those associations. And lastly, to do with technology. It's so easy now, by comparison to what it used to be, to get things looking beautiful. You know, we can make an image look beautiful. I can take a picture with my camera and my phone cam, and I can put it through Photoshop, and I can make this day look like it isn't cloudy at all. I can make those bands of rain go away with a few swipes of the clone brush. You know, I can do that. I can brighten the contrast and the brightness on this image, and you'll not know that it's getting dull now. You'll think it was as beautiful as it was half an hour ago when I set off. And it's not just the image, you know. Landscape gardening is a lot easier than it used to be. Interior decorating is a lot easier than it used to be. You can go to B&Q and you can find all the stuff all half made already to make your place look beautiful. You can even get your face and your body done relatively successfully. So, you know, many of the beautiful bodies we see around us may not have been a product of kind of fascist, quasi-fascist workout routines. They may just have been the result of a surgeon's knife. So beauty is so easy to simulate, or so much easier to achieve than perhaps it was, that it has lost its currency, lost its value as a currency, at least at face value. And face value, of course, is very apposite in those terms. It's getting a bit noisy here, I'm afraid, because I'm on the road. I'll just keep talking though, perhaps it's appropriate to wait till these cars have gone past. So for those three reasons, I'm finding myself less and less easy to recognise beauty in the way that Kant might have talked about it, or Edmund Burke might have talked about it. It's kind of the halfway point between the fallen and the sublime, you know. Kant and Burke almost have this set of hierarchies in which the beautiful is that which is on a pedestal and the sublime is that which is beyond human comprehension, almost. I can't see beauty in that same way. It's been knocked off its pedestal because of those things I've just mentioned. So what's the positive spin on this, if indeed there is one? And I think there is, and I think it's because, and this doesn't just refer to the capacity to experience beauty, I think it applies to other kind of capacities of human consciousness as well. I get myself killed here, aren't I? Which is that somehow, because we have this double chamber of consciousness, we seem able to decouple the experiences of things from the originating associations. You know, like it's possible now not just to have this kind of knee-jerk, reciprocal, instinctual response of an aesthetic response of I am feeling that this thing is beautiful, I am feeling this aesthetic response because there is that beautiful object. It's now possible to cultivate that feeling, isn't it? It's now possible to take hold of that feeling, at least to a large extent, if not completely. And applied, if not where one wishes, at least to a much wider spectrum of stimuli than the ones it was originally associated with. It's part of the vocabulary of our consciousness now that we can deploy and use. So a lot of the things that I find are beautiful now have no conventional relationship to aesthetics, really. You know, they don't belong in any kind of conventional aesthetics. You know, a lot of I was looking at a billboard next to the railway station in Truro recently, and it rained really hard just beforehand, and it was all kind of torn off, and bits of the billboard underneath were showing through, and it was all kind of falling down. So it's a big fat mess, you know, in any kind of realistic sense. But there's something about it I really liked, you know. I just had an aesthetic response to it. And there's nothing natural about that aesthetic response. There was nothing conventionally beautiful about what I was looking at. There was nothing of nature about it. It held no promise of any kind of function. The Nazis would have hated it because it looked degenerate. And if you were trying to Photoshop something like that, you'd have to invent new tools to do it. But it was beautiful. I was experiencing that beauty, or something like it. You know, when you look at some faces, unconventional faces, old faces, faces that have had some difficulties in their lives, faces that are a bit careworn perhaps, some of those faces are beautiful, not because of any conventional sense, but just because of a kind of learned ability to appreciate that. And aesthetics, which is much closer to ethics. Here I'm borrowing from Lenin, I think, who said that aesthetics is ethics is the aesthetics of the future. Something like that, really. So anyway, here I am amongst this decidedly unbeautiful traffic on the top of Cornwall, waiting to get rained on. And I think I better leave it there because I've talked long enough. Anyway, beauty. That'll do. I'll leave you with a half grey hill.